The void between stars shuddered. Reality itself split like overstretched skin, bleeding impossible colours across the blackness of space. Imperial augs aboard the cruiser. Emperor's vigilance registered the dimensional fracture as a catastrophic reading that overloaded coitators and drove machine spirits to madness. Warning, klaxons screamed through the command deck as the navigator collapsed. Blood streaming from his third eye. Void shields to maximum. Battle stations. Lord Admiral Khan gripped the edge of his command throne, watching as the fabric of real space tore wider. Astropath, send warning to the nearest. His words died as the first ship emerged. Unlike the twisted demonic vessels of the warp, this craft bore sleek white armour plating with purple accents. Its design alien yet disturbingly elegant. Then came another and another. Within minutes, a fleet of 30 vessels had materialised from the dimensional tear, arranging themselves in perfect battle formation. "Xenotech, my lord," whispered the senior tech priest, his mecha dendrites writhing in agitation, but nothing matching Imperial records. On the bridge of the foremost vessel, Lord Frieza watched with mild curiosity as tactical displays identified the primitive warships arrayed before him. The journey through the dimensional rift had been unpleasant, disorienting, but ultimately successful. New territory to conquer stretched before him, untouched by his father or brother, his alone. "My lord," his advisor ventured, "our scanners show these vessels possess rudimentary weapon systems and primitive shields. However, we detect unusual energy signatures inconsistent with any known technology in our database." Frieza's lips curled into a cold smile. "How fascinating. Let us introduce ourselves properly." He tapped a slender finger against his hovering throne. "Open communications." Admiral Karan watched as the picked screen flickered to life, revealing a being so alien that several bridge officers made the sign of the Aquila reflexively. Small in stature, but radiating such malevolence that even through the screen, Khan felt his breath catch. "Greetings, primitives." The being spoke, voice cultured yet dripping with disdain. "I am Lord Frieza, Emperor of the most powerful dynasty the universe has ever known. You have the distinct honour of being the first to witness my arrival in your—" He paused, glancing at something off-screen, rather underdeveloped corner of existence. Admiral Karan drew himself up. "This is Imperial space, Xenos. By the authority of the God Emperor of mankind, I demand your immediate surrender or face annihilation." The alien's expression shifted from amusement to something colder. "God Emperor, how quaint. I have encountered many who called themselves gods." His eyes narrowed. "I have killed most of them." The transmission cut. Frieza turned to his commander. "A demonstration, I think. Target their flagship. No survivors." Karan had barely opened his mouth to order evasive maneuvers when a beam of violet energy lanced from the alien vessel, bypassing void shields as if they were nothing. The Emperor's vigilance shuddered once before its adamantium hull split open, plasma reactors detonating in a blinding flash of light. Frieza observed the destruction with detached interest. One finger raised, he channeled a fraction of his power through the ship's amplification systems. Golden energy coalesced at his fingertip before erupting outward, a death beam that pierced the heart of each Imperial vessel in succession. Within moments, the entire battle group was reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas and debris. "Rather disappointing," he murmured, settling back into his hover throne. "Still, every conquest begins somewhere. Trace those primitive communication signals. Find me their centres of power, their leadership." His crimson eyes gleamed. "I want to know everything about this Imperium and its supposed God Emperor." Deep within the Immaterium, the echoes of destruction rippled outward. Something vast and hungry stirred. Ancient intelligences turning their attention toward the new arrival, whose psychic signature blazed like a newborn star. Power unlike anything they had tasted in millennia, untouched by faith or corruption. A delicacy, a challenge, a vessel. In the throne room of his flagship, Frieza felt a strange sensation like cold fingers brushing against his mind. He frowned, dismissing it as lingering effects from the dimensional crossing. Little did he realize that in this reality, power such as his drew the attention of entities far older and more terrible than even he could imagine. Entities that would soon whisper his name in the darkness between thoughts. The imperial world of Helios Primus burned. 3 days had passed since the strange fleet appeared in orbit, ignoring all communications and defensive measures. The planetary governor had refused evacuation, trusting in the planet's orbital defense platforms and the regiment of Imperial Guards stationed at the capital. His trust had been misplaced. The first kinetic bombardment shattered the defense platforms. Then came dropships, disgorging soldiers in sleek armor that repelled last gunfire like water. They advanced with mechanical precision, their exotic weapons cutting through Lehman Russ battle tanks as easily as human flesh. Survivors spoke of a smaller contingent of warriors, purples skinned and horned, who moved within human speed, ripping space marines apart with their bare hands. Canoness, Adeline of the Order of the Argent Shroud, led her battle sisters through the burning ruins of what had been the planetary cathedral. Bodies of the faithful lay everywhere, their corpses arranged in obscene patterns that made her stomach clench in righteous fury. "For the Emperor," she whispered. Bolter raised as shadows moved ahead. For the fallen, the aliens emerged from the smoke. 3 warriors of the horned kind, their eyes gleaming with cruel intelligence. One stepped forward, its posture almost casual, more of the armoured ones, it said, its Gothic flawless yet accented. "Lord Frieza finds your species fascinating, so fragile yet so convinced of your superiority." Adeline's response came in the form of a bolt shell aimed directly at the creature's head. The alien moved with impossible speed, catching the explosive round between 2 fingers. It studied the shell curiously before crushing it, letting the fragments fall to the marble floor. "Rude," it commented. The Sisters of Battle fought with valour born of faith, but faith alone could not overcome the alien's superior strength and speed. Within minutes, only Adeline remained, her armour cracked, her face bloodied, kneeling before her executioners. "Your Emperor abandons you," the lead alien taunted. "Where is your god now?" Adeline smiled through bloodied teeth. "He is here and he sees you." The alien raised its hand for the killing blow, then staggered suddenly, clutching its head. Its companions did the same, their faces contorted in pain. A psychic scream echoed through the cathedral, shattering stained glass and causing the very stones to tremble. Far above in orbit, Frieza felt it too, a pressure building behind his eyes, voices whispering promises and threats in languages he somehow understood despite never hearing before. For the first time since entering this strange reality, he felt something akin to unease. "My lord," his chief scientist reported, "we are detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the fleet, some kind of interference field emanating from nowhere." Frieza's eyes narrowed as he stood from his hover throne, tail lashing in irritation. "Nowhere? Explain yourself. The energy signatures appear and disappear from our senses. They exist in a phase state our instruments cannot properly track." The scientist hesitated. "Sir, some of the crew are reporting visions, hallucinations. The medical bay is overwhelmed." A drop of blood formed at the corner of Frieza's eye, sliding down his white cheek like a crimson tear. He wiped it away, staring at the stain on his finger with growing anger. "This reality," he hissed, "seems intent on offering resistance after all." On the bridge of the battle barge, Righteous Fury, Chapter Master Varus of the Crimson Paladins, watched the tactical display with grim focus. The distress call from Helios Primus had reached them by chance. A desperate astropathic cry cut short by what the navigator described as a shadow falling across the warp. "Time to transition from warp space," Lord asked his first captain. 5 minutes, brother. Captain, prepare the drop pods. We strike directly for the capital." Valeris turned to the ship's librarian, who stood unnaturally still, eyes unfocused. "Brother Mephiston, what do you sense?" The librarian blinked slowly, returning from whatever psychic vista had captured his attention. "Death, my lord, but not like any Xenos we have encountered. This presence in the warp, it does not belong. It burns too brightly, like a star forced into a vessel too small to contain it." He grimaced. "And there is something else. The ruinous powers, they have taken notice of this intruder." Valeris nodded gravely. If chaos had turned its gaze upon these new Xenos, the situation was even more dangerous than he had feared. "The Emperor protects," he inned. "The Emperor protects," his command squad echoed. The Righteous Fury tore back into real space, attack craft already launching from its massive hangar bays. The Space Marine's arrival caught Frieza's forces by surprise, focused as they were on the ground campaign. Boarding torpedoes slammed into the flanks of 3 alien vessels, while bombardment cannons opened fire on a 4th. In his sanctum, Frieza watched with growing irritation as alerts flashed across the tactical display. These newcomers were different, better armed, better trained, and their ships more resilient. Still nothing that could truly threaten him, but an annoyance nonetheless. "Shall we dispatch the elite squadrons, my lord?" his commander asked. Frieza waved a dismissive hand. "No, I will handle this personally." His lips curled into a cold smile. "It has been too long since I stretched my legs." Chapter: Master Valaris led the assault on the alien flagship, teleporting directly to what their auras identified as the command deck. Terminator armor gleaming, Stormbolter roaring, he cut a path through the alien crew with righteous fury. These were not the horned warriors his brothers had encountered on the surface, but a different breed. Tall, scaled creatures with technology that seemed to meld seamlessly with their bodies. For the Emperor and the Primarch, Valaris roared, his power fist crushing an alien commander's skull. "Cleanse and purify." The bridge doors slid open. The Space Marines turned as one, weapons raised. Valaris felt his twin hearts skip a beat as a small figure floated into the chamber. White and purple biomechanical armor encased a form that radiated such malevolence that even through his psycho-indoctrination, Valaris felt a moment of pure instinctive dread. The alien's tail swayed lazily behind it as it regarded the Space Marines with open curiosity. "How interesting," it said, voice cultured and calm. "You're not like the others. Better specimens certainly enhanced if these readings are correct." It smiled, revealing teeth too sharp for comfort. "I am Lord Frieza, though you may address me as your executioner." Brother Mephiston stepped forward, force staff crackling with psychic energy. "In the name of the Emperor, Abomination, your intrusion into Imperial space ends here." Frieza's expression shifted to one of mild surprise. "You have power similar to what I sensed earlier. How fascinating." He raised one finger, a small ball of energy forming at its tip. "Let us see how it compares to mine." The death beam struck me psychic barrier with enough force to crack ceramite floor plates beneath the librarian's feet. He staggered, blood trickling from his nose but maintained the shield. His brothers opened fire, Stormbolter rounds and plasma blasts converging on the alien tyrant. Frieza's form blurred, moving faster than even the enhanced estates could track. One moment he stood before them, the next he was behind their lines, his tail whipping out to impale a Terminator through his armor as if it were cloth. Another flicker of movement, and two more Marines fell, their helmets crushed by a casual backhand. Valaris roared in defiance, charging with his power fist raised. Frieza caught the blow with one hand, the energy field surrounding the weapon sputtering against his palm. "Impressive technology," the tyrant commented before his free hand punched through the chapter master's chest plate. Ceramite cracking like eggshell, but ultimately irrelevant. Mephiston unleashed his full psychic might, a wave of force that would have pulverized an Orc war boss. Frieza slid back several meters, momentarily surprised by the attack. His crimson eyes narrowed. "Now that," he said, "I felt." In a blur of speed, Frieza closed the distance between them, only to be met with the full fury of a Space Marine librarian fighting without restraint. Psychic lightning arced between them, reality itself buckling under the clash of energies. For a moment it seemed Mephiston might hold his own, then Frieza simply increased his power. The psychic backlash shattered Mephiston's concentration. Frieza's fist connected with the librarian's chest, sending him crashing through the bridge wall and into the corridor beyond. The remaining Space Marines fought valiantly, but they might as well have been fighting a force of nature. Within minutes the assault team was decimated. Frieza stood among the broken bodies, untouched, save for a single crack in his chest armor, where Mephiston's psychic assault had found purchase. He frowned, running a finger along the damage. "Perhaps there is more to this realm than I initially thought," he murmured. Below, on the surface of Helios Primus, the planet's remaining defenders felt a wave of despair as the righteous fury erupted into a ball of plasma and twisted metal. Their last hope for salvation died with the Space Marines, or so they believed. In the charred ruins of the capital's central district, Canoness Adelaine awakened from what she thought was death. Her body broken by the alien warriors now knit itself back together, through means she did not understand. A figure stood over her, human in appearance, but with eyes that held the cold emptiness of the void between stars. "Who?" she croaked through a healing throat. "Who are you?" The figure smiled, but there was no warmth in it. An interested party, shall we say, one who recognizes the threat this outsider poses, not just to your Imperium, but to powers you cannot comprehend. He gestured toward the sky where Frieza's fleet hung in orbit. Your God Emperor built his realm on certain laws canonous, laws that this creature breaks by his very existence. Adeline tried to make the sign of the Aquala, but her arms would not obey. Speak plainly, stranger. The tyrant must be opposed, but not destroyed. Not yet. The figure knelt beside her. He must be guided to a place where he can be properly welcomed. As consciousness slipped away again, Adeline heard the stranger whisper a name that burned itself into her memory: Blackstone Fortress. In the weeks that followed, Frieza's campaign of conquest expanded across the sector. World after world fell before his forces, each victory feeding his growing understanding of this strange universe he had entered. With each planet subjugated, his scientists gathered more information about the Imperium, its structure, and most importantly, its weaknesses. Yet, not all proceeded as smoothly as he had expected. On 3 separate occasions, his forces encountered unexpected resistance that could not be explained by conventional military tactics. On Corvan 4, a mining world of little strategic value, his elite warriors were decimated by invisible assailants that left behind nothing but the scent of ozone and whispers of Alpha Legion. On Demetra, a lone warrior in ancient Terminator armor held a critical mountain pass for 3 days against his best troops before disappearing without a trace when reinforcements arrived. Most disturbing were the dreams. Each night cycle, Frieza found himself walking through landscapes impossible to describe in physical terms, where colors had taste and thoughts took solid form. Voices called to him, offering power beyond even his comprehension in exchange for allegiance. Other voices warned of deception and eternal servitude. He ignored them all. Frieza served no master but himself. "My lord," his intelligence officer reported, "we have decrypted more of the Imperial data networks. We have located what appears to be a weapon of immense power currently dormant in the Boros system." Frieza studied the holographic projection, showing a massive star-shaped construction unlike anything in the Imperial records they had captured. "What do we know of it?" "The Imperium calls it a Blackstone Fortress, one of several ancient weapons believed to predate human civilization. Its technology is beyond even their understanding. They fear it, my lord." Frieza smiled. "Then I must have it." The Boros system was heavily defended with multiple Imperial battle groups guarding the space around the dormant Blackstone Fortress. Frieza's fleet approached cautiously, for once respecting the potential threat such concentrated firepower represented. All ships maintained position at maximum weapons range. Frieza commanded from the bridge of his flagship, "I will proceed alone." His advisors protested, but their words fell on deaf ears. Clad in his battle armor, Frieza launched himself from an airlock, propelling through the void of space under his own power. Imperial auger arrays tracked his approach, but mistook the small, fast-moving object for a torpedo or attack craft. By the time they realized their error, it was too late. Frieza tore through the hull of the command ship like a bullet through paper, emerging into a pressurized corridor where shocked crew members reached for weapons that would prove useless. With casual gestures, he eliminated resistance, making his way toward the bridge where the force commander would be located. Admiral Yaris of Battlefleet Obscurus was a veteran of 100 Void engagements. He had faced Orc rock ships, Eldar corsairs, and even a Tyrannid hive fleet. Nothing in his long career had prepared him for the creature that burst through the armoured bridge doors, moving so quickly that his bodyguards could not even raise their weapons before being cut down. "You command these vessels," Frieza stated, not a question, but an observation as he regarded the decorated officer. Admiral Yaris drew his power sword, its energy field humming to life. "In the name of the God Emperor, I will send you back to whatever hell spawned you, Xenos." Frieza did not even bother to dodge the swing. The power sword connected with his chest armor and shattered, leaving not even a scratch. The tyrant sighed with theatrical disappointment. "I had hoped for more useful information from you, Admiral." "No matter," his tail whipped forward, wrapping around the human's throat. The location of the control systems for the Blackstone Fortress. Now, despite the agony, Yaris remained defiant. "I die for the Emperor with pride," he gasped. "Pride?" Frieza tightened his grip slightly. An interesting final choice. With a flick of his tail, he ended the Admiral's life, then turned to the remaining bridge crew. Perhaps one of you will prove more practical in your devotion to continued existence. Within the hour, Frieza had the information he needed. The Blackstone Fortress remained dormant, its ancient systems requiring specific activation protocols known only to a select few within the Adeptus Mechanicus. One such tech priest was currently stationed aboard a research vessel studying the artifact. Magos Explorator Dren Venus felt the ship shudder as something breached the outer hull. Warning klaxons blared, but he remained focused on his work, mecha Endrites manipulating controls as he continued recording measurements from the Blackstone Fortress. The ancient construct had shown increased energy readings over the past 12 hours, something unprecedented in the 3 decades he had monitored it. The laboratory door hissed open without turning. Venus addressed the intruder. "Your timing is unfortunate. The artifact appears to be initiating some form of self-activation sequence, most irregular." "Is that so?" came a cultured voice that raised warnings in Venus's augmented senses. "How convenient for me!" The Magos turned slowly, taking in the small but imposing figure before him. "You are the Xenos designation, Frieza, threat-level extremist. You should not be here." Frieza smiled, moving further into the laboratory. "And yet here I am. Tell me, priest of machines, what do you know of this fortress?" Despite himself, Vanis found the question intellectually stimulating. The Blackstone fortresses are ancient weapons of unknown origin, theorized to predate even the Dark Age of technology. Their true purpose remains unclear, but their power is undeniable. A mecha Endrite gestured toward the viewport beyond which the massive structure hung in space. This particular specimen has remained dormant for centuries, but now it awakens. Frieza finished stepping closer to the monitoring equipment. "Just as I arrived to claim it. Fate, perhaps improbable," Venus replied flatly. "Statistical anomaly suggesting deliberate causality. Someone or something wants you here." For the first time, Frieza frowned, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. "Explain." The deck shuddered beneath them, more violently this time. Alarms changed pitch, becoming more urgent. On the monitoring screens, energy readings from the Blackstone Fortress spiked dramatically. "It appears," Vanessa said with the detached curiosity of a true servant of the Omnissiah, "that we're about to find out." A beam of impossible light erupted from the heart of the Blackstone Fortress, engulfing Frieza's flagship. The tyrant watched in stunned silence as his vessel, along with its entire crew, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but erased, as if it had never been. The beam continued, sweeping across his fleet, ship after ship disappearing from reality. "What is this?" Frieza demanded, genuine alarm in his voice for the first time since his arrival in this universe. Vaya studied his readings with increasing fascination. "The fortress is not destroying your fleet, Xenos. It is relocating it, creating a quantum tunnel through real space and the immaterium simultaneously. Fascinating." Frieza grabbed the Magos by his robes, lifting him effortlessly. "Where? Where is it sending my forces?" a new voice answered, silky, amused, and dripping with malice. "Somewhere you are eagerly awaited, Lord Frieza." The figure that materialized in the center of the laboratory wore ornate power armor of midnight blue, adorned with arcane symbols that hurt the eye to look upon directly. His face was handsome to the point of perfection, yet something about his smile suggested horrors lurking just beneath the surface. Traitor estates. Venus spat mechandrites reaching for hidden weapons. Alpha Legion? The Space Marine bowed with mocking courtesy. "Once, perhaps now, I serve a different master, one who has taken great interest in our visitor from beyond." He turned his gaze to Frieza. "You have made quite an impression on the Changer of Ways, Lord Frieza. Such power, such potential. It would be a waste to let the anathema's lapdogs destroy you." Frieza's eyes narrowed. "I serve no one. Space Marine, not your Emperor, not your Changer of Ways. No one." The Alpha Legionnaire laughed. "So said we all once." He gestured toward the viewport where the Blackstone Fortress now pulsed with energies that defied comprehension. "The choice is not whether to serve, but whom. The warp calls to you, Frieza. Even now your psychic signature burns like a beacon across the immaterium. The gods have noticed. They always notice power such as yours." The ship lurched violently, systems failing as the Blackstone Fortress's energy field expanded to envelop it. Frieza felt a pulling sensation, as if reality itself were thinning around him. "What is happening?" he demanded, though he already suspected the answer. "The fortress creates a bridge," the Alpha Legionnaire explained, his form beginning to waver as if seen through heat haze, a path to the realm beyond. "Your fleet has already begun the journey. You can follow willingly or be dragged there screaming. Either way, Lord Cinch awaits his audience. Rage built within Frieza, a cold fury at being manipulated. With blinding speed, he struck, his fist aiming directly for the Space Marine's head. But his hand passed through empty air as the Alpha Legionnaire's form dissipated like smoke. "We shall meet again," came his voice, fading into nothing on the other side. The laboratory, the research ship, even the stars outside the viewport began to blur, colours shifting into impossible hues. Magos Venus collapsed, blood pouring from augment implants as his enhanced brain failed to process what his senses reported. Frieza stood alone, watching as reality tore itself apart around him. For the first time since his arrival in this universe, he felt something akin to fear. Not of death he had died before and returned, but of something worse, something that threatened not his existence but his autonomy. No one controls Lord Frieza. He snarled into the maelstrom, no one. The storm of unreality intensified, and Frieza made his decision. Drawing upon his full power, he created a barrier of energy around himself, a bubble of enforced reality against the encroaching madness. If these so-called gods wished to meet him, he would ensure the encounter occurred on his terms, not theirs. As the last vestiges of real space dissolved around him, Frieza focused his mind on a single purpose: survival, victory, dominance. No matter what awaited him on the other side, he would conquer it. As he had conquered so many worlds before, the light of the Blackstone Fortress engulfed him completely, and Lord Frieza vanished from the material universe. In the Sanctum Sanctorum of the Grey Knight's Fortress Monastery on Titan, Grandmaster Valdar Oricon jolted awake, psychic sweat soaking his meditation robes. The vision had been clearer than any he had experienced in his 3 centuries of service. A being of immense power, neither daemon nor Xenos, yet carrying elements of both. A breach in reality that threatened far more than mere lives or worlds. "Brother," came the concerned voice of his equerry, "what troubles you?" Valdar rose to his feet, his expression grim beneath his silvered hair. "Summon the Brotherhood, all of them. The prognostic have shown me a vision of doom beyond measure." He moved to the arming chamber where his Terminator armor waited. The boundary between real space and the warp grows thin. Something has crossed over, or been pulled over, that should never have been. A daemon Primarch. Worse, a living bridge. Valdar's eyes, sharp despite his age, fixed on the middle distance. The Chaos Gods have found a new champion, one whose very existence may allow them passage into the material realm without the constraints the Emperor placed upon such transitions. He clenched his fist. If they succeed, the Cicatrix Maledictum will seem as nothing compared to what will follow. Within the hour, the Grey Knights chapter was mobilized, their strike cruisers breaking orbit around Saturn, their destination, the warp storm that had suddenly appeared in the Boros system, a maelstrom of energy that astropaths described as screaming with the voice of a being caught between godhood and damnation. The warp churned and boiled around Frieza as he drifted through its impossible landscape. His protective energy field held, but he could feel it weakening with each passing moment. This realm operated on laws he did not yet understand, laws that seemed to shift and change on the whims of unseen forces. Shapes moved in the distance, vast, incomprehensible entities that regarded him with hunger and fascination. Voices whispered directly into his mind, offering power, knowledge, dominion over worlds beyond counting. Other voices promised revenge against the Imperium, against the Emperor, against all who would stand in his way. Frieza ignored them all. He had encountered false gods before. These would be no different. Then he saw it, a crystalline structure floating in the void, shimmering with every colour imaginable, and some that had no name. Within its faceted chambers, he glimpsed his fleet, his soldiers frozen in time, preserved like insects in amber. And standing before it, waiting, was a figure that defied description. It wore the form of the Alpha Legionnaire from the research ship, but distorted, elongated, its armour now fused with flesh that shifted between scales, feathers, and bare skin in nauseating patterns. "Welcome, Lord Frieza," it said, its voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "My master has waited so long for one such as you." Frieza floated closer, his protective field flaring against the warp energies that sought to penetrate it. "And who might your master be?" The figure spread its arms, which now extended impossibly long, terminating in hands with too many fingers. "The architect of fate, the changer of ways, the great conspirator. He has many names, but you may know him as Saint, most powerful of the Chaos Gods." "Another god?" Frieza's tone was dismissive. "I tire of deities and their grand claims. Not just a god, Lord Frieza, the very embodiment of hope, change and ambition, of sorcery and knowledge, and schemes spanning millennia." The figure's face rippled, features rearranging into new patterns. "He offers you what you have always sought. True immortality, power beyond mortal comprehension, and an empire that spans not just space, but time itself." "And the cost?" Frieza asked. For there was always a cost. Allegiance, service. The figure gestured toward the crystalline structure. "Your fleet, your soldiers. They are already being remade, enhanced, improved. You could command an army of demons bound to your will, sweep across the galaxy with forces that no Imperial technology could hope to withstand." For a moment, Frieza considered it. The power these entities offered was undeniable. He had felt it from the moment he entered this reality. A different kind of energy, wild and untamed compared to the key he had mastered. Then he remembered the countless would-be gods he had defeated, the pride he took in standing alone, bowing to no one, the satisfaction of crushing those who believed themselves his superior. "A generous offer," he said at last, "but I must decline. I have never required help to conquer worlds before. I see no reason to start now." The figure's expression shifted, anger replacing its ingratiating smile. "You do not understand, Lord Frieza. This is not a negotiation. The great changer has already marked you as his own. Your psychic signature, your very soul, bears his touch now." "My soul belongs to me alone," Frieza replied coldly, his aura flaring as he gathered his power, "as does my destiny." The warp around them responded to his surge of energy, twisting and convulsing as if in pain. The demon for Frieza now recognized it as such recoiled, its form becoming more unstable. "You cannot resist the will of Tench," it hissed, voice distorting. "None can." Frieza's response was a blast of concentrated energy that tore through the daemon's chest, scattering its essence across the warp. The crystalline structure containing his fleet trembled, cracks appearing across its surface. "I am Lord Frieza," he declared to the unseen presences he felt watching from the depths of the warp. "I do not serve, I conquer." With a final surge of power, he shattered the crystal prison, releasing his fleet from its stasis. Alarms blared across the vessels as crews awoke to find themselves adrift in the nightmare realm of the warp. Frieza reached out with his mind, connecting to the command systems of his flagship, which had been reconstituted along with the rest of his fleet. "All vessels, full power to engines and shields, follow my signal precisely." Using his own life energy as a beacon, Frieza began to forge a path through the warp, tearing open a rift that led back to real space. It was a desperate gamble, one that drained his power at an alarming rate, but he would not submit to these self-proclaimed gods. He would not become a pawn in their great game. Behind him, the warp convulsed with rage as the entities within it realized their prize was escaping. Demonic forms materialized, clawing at the energy barrier surrounding his fleet. Some broke through, materializing aboard ship after ship, slaughtering crew members and corrupting systems. Frieza ignored the chaos, focusing entirely on the rift he was creating. Sweat beaded on his brow, his muscles trembling with exertion as he poured more power into the breach. Just a little more. The rift widened, stabilized, revealing the cold stars of real space beyond. One by one, his ships pushed through, escaping the clutches of the warp. Frieza was the last to pass through, his energy nearly spent, his breathing labored. As the rift began to close behind him, he caught a glimpse of a vast Aven form composed of shifting colors and impossible geometries. 9 eyes fixed upon him with a hatred so pure it transcended mortal comprehension. "This is not over," came a voice directly into his mind, bypassing his ears entirely. "You are marked, Frieza, forever mine." Then the rift sealed, and they were back in real space, or what remained of his fleet. Nearly half the vessels had been lost, either destroyed in the escape or left behind in the clutches of the warp. Those that survived showed signs of corruption. Their once sleek white hulls now marked with strange symbols that appeared to shift when viewed directly. Frieza stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the damage reports with cold fury. His commanders kept their distance, sensing his rage. The encounter had cost him dearly, not just in ships and soldiers, but in something more personal, his certainty of supremacy. For the first time in his long existence, he had faced entities whose power rivaled, perhaps even exceeded his own. My lord, his second-in-command, ventured cautiously. Many of the crew report strange dreams, hallucinations. Some have developed mutations. Frieza glanced at the officer, noting the faint blue tinge spreading across his scales, the extra digit growing from his left hand. Signs of the warp's touch. Quarantine the affected immediately. He ordered, execute any who show significant deviation from baseline physiology. The commander saluted, relief evident in his expression at not being counted among the condemned. Not yet. Alone in his private chambers, Frieza examined his reflection in a polished metal surface. His form appeared unchanged, yet he could feel something different within himself. A presence, faint but persistent, whispering at the edges of his consciousness. He pushed it away with practiced mental discipline, but knew it would return. I must find a way to cleanse this taint, he murmured, or use it to my advantage. The Imperial response to Frieza's incursion had escalated from desperate defense to coordinated counterattack. Reports of the Xenos tyrant's capabilities had reached the highest levels of Imperial command, triggering emergency protocols not activated since the Horus Heresy. On Terra, within the inner sanctum of the Imperial Palace, the High Lords convened in emergency session. Present via holithic projection was Lord Inquisitor Hector Rex, his massive Terminator-armoured form dominating the chamber despite being thousands of light-years distant. The entity designated Frieza represents a threat beyond standard xenocidal protocols. Rex's projection announced, his voice echoing through the ancient chamber. Initial encounters suggest power comparable to a greater daemon, yet it manifests in real space without the limitations typically imposed on warp entities. Fabricator General Zagreus Kane of Mars leaned forward, mechadendrites twitching with agitation. Our analysis indicates technology far beyond even Dark Age capacities. His vessels employ energy manipulation systems that defy the Omnissiah's laws. More concerning, added Grandmaster Valdar of the Grey Knights, his silver armour gleaming even through the distorted projection, is the entity's psychic signature. It burns like a beacon in the warp, yet shows no sign of chaos corruption. Until recently, the chamber fell silent at this revelation. "Explain," demanded the Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes, his golden armour reflecting the dim light of the sanctum. 3 solar days ago, our prognostic detected a massive warp disturbance in the Boros system. The Blackstone fortress stationed there activated without Imperial authorization, creating a temporary warp rift. Both the fortress and Frieza's fleet disappeared into the immaterium. Valdar's expression darkened. Yesterday, approximately half those vessels returned to real space. They bear the unmistakable taint of chaos, specifically the Changer of Ways. Murmurs often complicated matters immeasurably. The entity itself asked Rex corrupted but fighting the influence. Valdar replied, "A most unusual circumstance. It appears to have rejected direct possession or allegiance, yet could not escape the warp unmarked. Its resistance suggests a will of extraordinary strength." The Captain General rose from his throne, his decision made. "This cannot be allowed to continue. Deploy the Grey Knights in force. The Custodian Guard will provide support. The entity must be neutralized before its corruption spreads further, or the ruinous powers find a way to break its resistance." On the bridge of the battle barge, Fury of Titan, Brother Captain Artorius of the Grey Knights prepared his battle brothers for the coming engagement. 100 of the Emperor's finest warriors, each psychically gifted, genetically perfected, and armed with weapons specifically designed to combat demonic entities. "Our target is the Xenos designated Frieza," he explained. The tactical display showing the Tyrant's fleet regrouping around an uninhabited world in the Garuda system. Intelligence suggests it has been marked by Tench, but resists full corruption. This presents both opportunity and danger. Brother Naval, the company's chief librarian, stepped forward. "The entity's psychic signature is unique, brothers. neither fully demonic nor purely material. It exists in a state of flux between realities. Can it be banished? Asked Justin Thorne, inspecting his nemesis force, Halberd. Unknown, admitted Nerville, but its connection to the warp appears involuntary rather than innate. If we can sever that connection, then we must bring it down conventionally, finished Artorius. The Emperor's will shall be done. The Grey Knight's battle barge translated from the warp with precision only the Emperor's finest navigators could achieve, emerging directly into the heart of Frieza's fleet. Before the alien vessels could react, teleport homers activated, sending squads of Terminator-armoured Grey Knights directly to the flagship's bridge. Frieza had sensed their approach moments before they materialized, feeling the psychic pressure of their arrival like a gathering storm. He turned from the command console, facing the armoured giants with mild curiosity rather than alarm. More Space Marines, he observed. Though you seem different from the others, more potent, brother. Captain Artorius stepped forward, his nemesis force sword humming with psychic energy. In the name of the Emperor of Mankind, your trespass into Imperial space ends now. Daemon touched Xenos. Frieza's eyes narrowed at the term Daemon touched. An interesting choice of words. He studied the Grey Knights with growing interest, sensing the psychic power emanating from their armour and weapons. You're not ordinary soldiers, are you? You possess energy not unlike what I encountered in that other realm. The entity recognizes the warp, Librarian Nerville observed, force staff raised defensively. It understands more than it should. I understand enough, Frieza replied, his form beginning to glow with purple energy. I understand that your Emperor fears me as he should. I understand that these Chaos Gods desire my allegiance, which they shall never have. And I understand that you, his crimson eyes locked with Artorius's, believe you can destroy me. The Grey Knights struck as one, psychically charged weapons aimed directly at the alien tyrant. Frieza's speed was breathtaking, dodging between the attacks with fluid grace, his tail lashing out to strike a knight's armour with enough force to crack ceramite. Impressive, he acknowledged, deflecting a blow from Artorius's force sword, but still insufficient. With a gesture, he unleashed a wave of energy that sent 3 knights flying across the bridge. Others pressed the attack, their weapons connecting with his armoured form, drawing first blood as psychically charged blades found purchase where conventional weapons had failed. Frieza hissed in surprise, genuine pain registering as the nemesis weapons disrupted not just his physical form, but the psychic energy now intertwined with it. He retaliated with increased fury, his fists moving faster than even the enhanced estates could track, crushing armour and bone with terrifying efficiency. Librarian Nerville fell back, channeling his psychic might into a binding ritual. Captain, we cannot defeat him through conventional means. His power is too great. But I sense the warp corruption within him fighting against his natural energies, if we can amplify that conflict. Artorius nodded grimly, blood streaming from a crack in his helmet. Do it, brother. We shall keep him occupied. The remaining Grey Knights formed a semicircle around Frieza, their attacks perfectly coordinated to prevent his escape rather than land dealing blows. The tyrant recognized the strategy immediately and laughed. A distraction? How quaint. He glanced toward Nerval, sensing the growing psychic pressure. Ah, I see. You think to use their corruption against me. Clever, but futile. With blinding speed, he launched himself toward the librarian, only to be intercepted by Artorius, who took the full force of the charge. The captain's Terminator armor crumpled inward, blood spraying from the joints, yet he maintained his grip on Frieza's arm. Now, brother, he gasped through pulverized organs. Nerval completed the ritual, psychic energy erupting from his force staff in a blinding flash. It struck Frieza directly in the chest, not as a physical attack, but as a catalyst, dramatically accelerating the conflict between his natural energy and the warp corruption attempting to claim him. Frieza screamed, a sound of rage rather than pain as conflicting energies tore through his body. His aura flared violet, then blue, then a sickly greenish hue that matched the colours of warp fire. Symbols appeared on his white skin, burning themselves into his flesh before fading and reappearing elsewhere. "What have you done? What?" he snarled, struggling to maintain control of his form as it began to shift involuntarily. Horns lengthening, a third eye threatening to open on his forehead. "Given you a choice, abomination," Artorius replied, his voice weak but resolute. Succumb to the corruption you have fought or destroy yourself fighting it. Either way, your threat to the Imperium ends. Frieza's response was a surge of golden energy so intense it vaporized the nearest Grey Knights instantly. You underestimate me, human. I have faced destruction before and returned. I have conquered death itself. This corruption, these gods of yours, they are nothing to me. With supreme effort, he focused his will inward, fighting not just against the warp corruption, but channeling its chaotic energy in new ways. The symbols on his skin stabilized, no longer shifting randomly, but forming patterns of his own design. The third eye receded, but left behind a crystalline gem embedded in his forehead that pulsed with inner light. I am Lord Frieza, he declared, his voice resonating with newfound power. I do not serve the warp. It serves me. The surviving Grey Knights felt the shift in the Immaterium as Frieza exerted his will over the very forces of chaos attempting to claim him. It should have been impossible. No mortal being had ever successfully turned Sinch's own power against itself without becoming a slave to change. Yet Frieza was doing precisely that. Brother Nerville staggered backward, blood pouring from his eyes and nose as he witnessed the impossible transformation. Captain, we must withdraw. He's becoming something new, something neither demon nor mortal if he completes this metamorphosis. But it was already too late. Frieza's form stabilized. The chaotic energy is now fully under his control. His armor had changed, incorporating elements reminiscent of daemon-forged ceramite, yet bearing none of the corrupted asymmetry typical of chaos influence. The crystal in his forehead gleamed with inner fire, focusing his psychic might. Now then, he said, his voice calm once more, shall we continue our discussion on more equal terms? With a gesture, he froze the Grey Knights in place, psychic energy immobilizing even their warp-resistant armor. Only Artorias, through sheer force of will and the power of his faith, managed to maintain limited movement. What are you? The captain demanded, struggling against the invisible restraints. I am what I have always been, Frieza replied, a conqueror, a destroyer of worlds. But now he examined his transformed hands with satisfaction. I am more. Your chaos gods sought to make me their servant. Instead, I have taken their power for my own, an impressive gift, though it may be. Brother Captain Artorias managed to raise his force sword, its blade glowing with the Emperor's light. The God Emperor protects, he inned, channeling every ounce of his faith into one final strike. Frieza caught the blade between two fingers, the psychic energy crackling against his transformed flesh, but failing to penetrate. Your Emperor may indeed protect, Captain, but not you, not today. With a casual flick of his wrist, he snapped the Nemesis blade, its broken pieces clattering to the deck. Then, rather than delivering the killing blow, he stepped back. Take a message to your Emperor, Frieza said, releasing the psychic hold on the Grey Knights. Tell him that I have no interest in his Imperium of Man. The galaxy is vast with space enough for multiple empires. I shall carve out my own realm from the stars beyond your borders, using the power I have acquired here. We do not bargain with demons, Artorias spat, blood flecking his ruined helmet. I am no demon, Captain. I am something far more dangerous, a being of flesh who has mastered the warp rather than being mastered by it. Frieza's tail swayed lazily behind him. Go now before I reconsider my generosity. With a thought, he teleported the surviving Grey Knights back to their battle barge, a feat that should have required ritual, machinery, and the blessing of the machine god. Alone on the bridge of his flagship, Frieza contemplated his new existence. The power of the warp flowed through him now, controlled and directed by his indomitable will. He sensed entities watching him from beyond the veil of reality, the self-proclaimed gods, observing with fury and fascination as he turned their own realm against them. A new game begins, he murmured, feeling the crystal in his forehead pulse in response to his thoughts. With it, he could reach across vast distances, touch the minds of others, reshape matter itself if he concentrated hard enough. But such power came at a price. The hunger of the warp was constant, demanding souls to feed its insatiable appetite. Frieza smiled coldly. There were plenty of souls to harvest beyond the borders of the Imperium, entire species waiting to be subjugated, their life energy fueling his ascension to true godhood. Not a false deity like the Chaos Powers or this Emperor of Mankind, but something transcendent beyond the comprehension of either. set course for the galactic rim. He commanded his remaining officers, many of whom now bore subtle signs of transformation themselves, extensions of his will rather than independent beings. There is a universe waiting to be conquered. The remaining ships of his fleet, now altered by their time in the warp, formed up around the flagship as reality rippled around them. No longer requiring warp drives or navigators, Frieza simply tore a hole in space-time through his newfound abilities, creating a passage to distant stars untouched by human hands. As his fleet disappeared into the rift, Imperial orgs across 3 sectors registered a psychic scream so powerful it drove hundreds of astropaths to madness or death. The message imprinted directly into the minds of those sensitive enough to receive it was simple yet terrifying. I am coming. I am inevitable. I am Frieza, God Emperor of the Outer Darkness. In the Sanctum Sanctorum on Titan, Grandmaster Valdar Oricon felt the psychic shockwave as a physical blow. The chamber's crystal walls cracked under the pressure, shards falling like diamond rain around his kneeling form. "What was that?" gasped his equerry, struggling to remain upright. Valdar rose slowly, his ancient face grave. "A birth announcement," he said softly. "Something new has entered the galaxy. Neither daemon nor mortal, but a hybrid of the worst aspects of both. The Xenos Frieza no longer merely Xenos." Valdar moved to the chamber's center where a holithic projection showed the last known coordinates of Frieza's fleet. "We face something unprecedented, brother. A being that has taken the power of chaos without submitting to its corruption. One that can control the warp through strength of will alone. Is such a thing even possible? It should not be. Yet it is." The Grandmaster's expression hardened. "Alert all brotherhoods. This conflict has only just begun. If this being cannot be destroyed, it must be contained. The alternative is unthinkable." Across the stars in the outer darkness beyond Imperial space, Lord Frieza stood upon the bridge of his flagship, gazing out at virgin territory ripe for conquest. The crystal in his forehead pulsed with stolen power, a beacon visible in both real space and the warp. Worlds would burn, species would be extinguished, and souls would be harvested to feed his growing might. The gods of this reality had sought to make him their pawn. Instead, he would become their rival, their nemesis, perhaps even their executioner. For he was Frieza, destroyer of worlds, slayer of gods, master of both the material realm and the immaterium, and his reign of terror had only just begun.